Living my bucolic life, free, healthy city strife. Horses, chicks, and dogs, they are my neighbors. I cook and sew and spin, and move the horses into the barn. Then time to move them out again. Red barns, green pastures, beautiful white houses. The view I see each day when I arise. This life pleases me, as it is plain to see. I'm living my bucolic life.
Hello everybody. Time for a quick and easy top. So I am going to be using this pattern right here. It is a Butterick pattern, and it looks like basically just different sleeve variations on the same bodice, okay? I like the look of this one with the really full sleeves. I like the look of it, but the reality is I think that that would really get in my way. So that makes me sad. So what I have decided to do is view C, which is basically a sleeve, and it looks like they have elastic down at the bottom, you know. When I get to that point, I may or may not put elastic in the bottom, you know. That way I'll have a loose, if I don't, I'll have a loose sleeve, but not huge, which might be more what I can use. Now, the thing with this pattern or with this project is the fabric that I'm going to use. It is October, and I got this. I'm trying not to be spooky, but I have a lot of black cats, and I love my black cats. And this fabric just reminded me of my black cats. You may see Midna in here sometime. She is a fluffy black cat that lives up here in my sewing room and the other rooms upstairs. I've got a black cat that lives in the barn, Pouncer. I've got another black cat that lives on the house porch, you know, which is Colette. So we never know. We never know. There's black cats all around, and, you know, again, not trying to be spooky, but this reminded me of my sweet black kitties, so I'm going to use it to make my top. And it is 100% cotton. I have pre-washed it in hot water. I have pre-dried it on high heat, so hopefully all that shrinkage has come out. And hopefully this is going to go together fast and easy, like they're promising. So we'll see. Let me tip the camera down and open the pattern. Okay, so the first piece I have here is piece number 3. Sorry about that, which is my sleeve. And my pattern is the ZZ side, which is the large, extra large, and double X large. And it says here at this bullet, which should be at the fullest part of my bicep, that the sleeve width is 17 inches. And that'll work for me and give me some ease to move around. So that's good. I'll just be keeping the size large for that piece. I did not see on the outside of the envelope, though, the finished bust width. So I'm hoping that they put it on the pattern pieces. And yes, they did. Okay, so it says for the large, size large, they have 48.5 inch for the bust, if that's written on the front part here. And that is fine. That is giving plenty of ease. This is supposed to be a very full top. So thankfully they are putting a lot of ease in there. So it looks like I don't even need to modify this pattern. This might be fast and easy. I'm going to go ahead and cut out piece 1, piece 2, and piece 3. There are no facings. There's no interfacing. Just those 3 pieces, and get them laid out and cut out of my cotton fabric. It looks like both the front and the back are cut out on a fold. Now I wanted to point out that the sleeve piece is too wide to cut, you know, with the regular fold here and selvages there. It's just too wide too. But I'm going to cut them out one at a time because I want to make sure that my little kitties are always upright. So I'll have to cut one and then flip my piece over, move it down, and cut another. Because if I just fold my fabric in half, one sleeve will be upside down as far as the print on the sleeve, so that won't be any good. Right, I've got it cut out, and I almost feel like I should be setting a timer on this one because, yeah, this is going to be fast. There are no, for the view I'm doing, no gathers, no pleats, no darts, no funky curves, you know, it should be good. So, the first thing we're going to be doing is sewing the front to the back at the side seams. But, you know me, before I do that, I am going to do a couple things. First, I'm going to transfer a couple marks over. We don't really need to do a whole lot, just a couple. And I'm going to be serging around the edge. And since this is such a short video anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take the camera over to my serger so you can see what I mean when I say that and how close I get to the edge. So on this pattern, there are no circles. Amazingly, there's just a few notches, and I'm just clipping them. And yes, I am clipping them before I serge around it. I'll be able to find them. If I know the general area where they are, I can find them, even underneath my serging threads. Because if I clip them after, it cuts that serging thread, and then it unravels a little bit, you know, and that's just ugly. So, let's move over to the serger. Okay, this is my serger. I think she's from like the 1980s. She's a Burnett 234, you know, works well. Why change it if it works well? You know what I mean? So when I'm serging around something, I'm going to get started down here at the bottom edge and come up towards the arm area, the sleeve area, so you can see what I'm talking about. But if you can see, I'm not really cutting anything off. There's maybe a couple pieces down here at the edge. What I'm doing is just barely skimming the edge so everything is overcast well. Now when I get up to the corner, I am going to run it until my needle has passed the fabric. Okay, so my needle is just past where the fabric is. I'm turning it to raise my needle, raise the presser foot, rotate my fabric, and put it back down. And that's going to give you a nice sharp corner where you're not taking off any of the fabric. Like up here, I've gone past that corner, raising my needle, raising my presser foot, putting my fabric where it needs to be, and get going again. Okay, and I do it ahead of time, that way I can press seam allowances open, I don't have to worry about anything fraying, and it has a lovely seam finish when I'm done. Alright, so with the front notches made and the serging done, I'm going to do the back now. The back has a flat top. The front comes up kind of like a smile. So the back has double notches on the sleeve, always will. And it's got a couple notches there. And so I'm just going to do the same thing where I serge around this piece, and then we'll come back and we'll put the side seams together. And I am going to be using Vincent today. I have not used him in a while. He is a cute little Singer 128 clone made in Japan, mid-century, 1950s or something. So I'm just loading up a long bobbin. He is a shuttle machine, so he uses these types of long bobbins in a shuttle. But he works fabulous. So when you're loading him, the thread comes across the front, it pops into the little bullet, the thread comes down the slanty groove, around a little finger, back up, popping across the little leaf spring, and then you just pop the little guy in there, and he is loaded up, and whoopsie, need to slide my slide back in, and he's loaded up and ready to go. So let me get his needle threaded, and we'll get started. Okay, so I got my side seams put in over on my little Vincent machine, and what I noticed is that the front and back look very similar. Yeah, the front's a little bit lower than the back, but just so it's easy for me to tell, I'm going to go ahead and put one of my little labels onto the back, and you know, I gotta singe the edge of the ribbon so it does not want to fray. Right now I'm just going to pin it back there just so I don't forget, but sometime before everything is done, I'm just going to go ahead and sew this in after that casing is put in, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is work on the sleeves of our incredibly fast project here. So let me turn the camera down so you can see what this sleeve piece looks like. All right, so we are going straight down here to putting together our side seam in the sleeve, but before I do that, I am going to clip my notches. 2 notches is always the back, 1 notch is always the front. And there really aren't any dots here. There's not a dot for a shoulder top placement or anything because it's kind of debatable because it's going to be in an elastic casing. So what I need to do though before I sew that side seam, of course, is to serge my edges. If you don't have a serger, you can zigzag stitch it. If you only have a straight stitch machine, you can actually just run a row of straight stitch, like 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and that's going to help protect it from fraying excessively. Lots of things to do, but I do highly recommend doing something to protect the edges from fraying. Okay, so now I have everything serged. I've got my edges pinned together here for my sleeve. I'm going to go ahead and stitch it on both sleeves at 5/8 of an inch and then come back and press this seam allowance open. All right, so here it is. I am going to turn this sleeve right side out for a minute. Now the sleeve has, different notches, of course, but it's also different heights. And the shorter one is the front, the taller one is the back. At this point, I think my microphone fell off, so I'm just going to do a voiceover here. And what I'm going to try to show you is that the side with the little point is the front. The side with a flat part is the back. And I'm just going to match up my sleeve front to my bodice front and pin them together and sew that sleeve on. Everything matches up really well. You don't need to really ease it or anything like that. I'm going to sew 1 row of stitching at 5/8 of an inch. Don't worry, I'm going to come back later and sew the 2nd row of stitching. But for right now, I just want to get the sleeves attached. So let me go ahead and put that on. Okay, I've got my sleeves sewed on, and you may be asking yourself, Marie, why didn't you hem these sleeves before you sewed them on? Because I usually do that, and actually the instructions tell you to hem it before you put it on. But my answer is I didn't know how long I wanted my sleeves to be. And I couldn't really tell by looking at the piece because the way these sleeves are, they come up onto your shoulder. So I wanted to wait till this point, and what I did is, this is my top, I just kind of slid it onto my arm, held the top part up where I'm going to want this point here to end up on my shoulder. And what I found out is at the length that they are, it comes down like this, which is really long on me. I prefer like a 3/4 length, because that way I can still do things, still have a sleeve that's covering my arm, probably closer to this length, but I didn't want that ruffle. So now that I know how long it is, I'm going to want my sleeve finished length to probably be about 6 inches shorter, okay? I'm kind of sad that I wasted all of this extra fabric, but what I'm thinking of doing, just because I have all of the extra length right now, is because this is a fairly straight sleeve, and I'm not sure if this will work yet or not, but what I was thinking is I'm going to be folding it in half of the amount that it's too long, which is 3 inches or so. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. I am not measuring quite exactly and everything, but this is just to get the idea. And then I was going to fold up the bottom kind of like a little cuff, since I have the extra on there anyway. And if I fold it up like a cuff, my little cats are going to be going the right direction like that. And it's a little something different. So I think that's how I'm going to end up hemming my sleeves. So what I need to do is turn this whole thing inside out so I can access the side that I want. And on the inside, I think that the easiest thing for me to do is actually going to be to come in here and draw a line at 6 inches, which is the entire length I need to shorten. Okay, I'm just going to put a couple little marks here. And then I'll do the same on the other side, and then I can fold my little serged edge up to that mark like this, all right, on both sides, and I'm going to press it at that point. Okay, so after I pressed it up, I went ahead and just ran a row of stitching just below where my serging edge is there, if you can see it. So now I'm going to turn my sleeve right side out, put it down here, and I'm going to fold up this bottom edge. Oh, I'm probably going to fold it about like this. I think that I have probably at least 1/4 inch between my stitching and the top, okay? And I'm going to get that folded all the way around and then press it very carefully so that I can try to get the fabric to believe that it wants to lay like this. I think it's going to be adorable. Okay, so I'm just going to press this really carefully here. Now, I don't want it to want to fall down, so back here where my seam is, I'm just going to do a stitch in the ditch kind of thing and run a seam straight up here, okay, inside of this little seam row right here. So hopefully it'll be pretty much invisible from the outside. Out here, I may have to, I'm going to be tacking it on, but I'm toying with the idea of putting some kind of beading or decoration on it, is what it is. So, oh look, that almost matched up. Huh. That would have been something, wouldn't it? But, you know, it's not to be. Okay, I think I figured out what I'm going to do, and this is going to turn this quick and easy project into a not as quick, but, you know, still fun project. And what I'm going to do is, instead of beads, I have a whole bunch of these little buttons, and they're very small little shirt-sized buttons, lots of them. I'm going to use them as decoration, and just kind of sew one every inch or half or so all the way across both of my little sleeve cuffs, and that's going to keep them folded up nicely and, you know, add a little bit of something extra. So that is definitely a needle and thread, do it by hand kind of thing. I think the first thing I'm going to do is get my ruler here, and I'm going to start marking at the opposite of where my seam is. So that's going to be out here. I want to put one, you know what, I need to get my heat erasable pen because I'm going to be drawing all over the place on here. Okay, so I'm going to put one here, put a little X, and then from that point on both sides, I'm just going to start measuring every 1.5 inches. Well, that's right here, the little cat's behind. So that won't work. I'm just going to go ahead and put a little pin. Pins do work, and they work lovely. Okay, so every 1.5 inches, I'm going to put a little pin, which is going to mark the place where I'm going to put a button. Now, if I had a zigzag machine set up, I could be sewing all of these on by machine, you know, put one of those big open-toed button application type feet on, but I don't. I've got Vincent over there, and so honestly, here's my thoughts. Sewing on the buttons by hand, it doesn't take a lot of extra time, and sewing, you have to be able to find enjoyment and tranquility and all that Zen kind of things in the process. You know, because, I mean, as soon as we get done with one thing, we're going to pick up and do another, so we might as well enjoy it as we go, right? So since I am sewing these on by hand, I'm not going to stress out about it taking a little extra time. You know, I will pop a podcast of some sort or some music on, listen to, and just sew them on. Now, I don't have to put them on as heavy duty as if I'm actually using them as functional buttons. They're just decorative. So probably about 3 stitches is enough, and then I can tie it off and go to the next one. But I kind of like the look of that. You know, it's a little pop of color. Alrighty, so I got my sleeve done. So now it should be about like that, I'm thinking. And I'm gonna like that a lot. I think the buttons are fun. You know, this is definitely not a serious article of clothing here. So back to the instructions. We are all the way over chunk here. We have put the sleeves on, but I still need to come back and do a second row of stitching. I didn't realize they want you to reinforce it, but that's a good thing. So I have my first row here. Get my little sleeve seam here. Okay, so here's my first row. I'm going to come back right around here, somewhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 inch, and I need to get more ink for this pen, and do a second row of stitching right here. And then I might be clipping up to where that is at the bottom here, just making little clips to the outer row of stitching, just so that it has a little bit of extra flex down there between the two notches. Okay, I've got my 2 rows of stitching in, and what they are telling you in the instructions to do is come back in here and just trim right next to this outer row of stitching. I'm not going to do that. I'm just clipping a few notches at the bottom so it's going to flex more. I think that's going to be fine. Now these seam allowances are going to be towards the sleeve. Okay, so here's the sleeve on either side. So on the front it goes that way, back goes that way. Now here's a thing, and I don't know, I guess I could dig through my trash, but I don't feel like it. On the next instruction, it's about the casing at the very top, all right? And there's going to be elastic that goes through it, and what are they calling for? 1/4 inch elastic. Okay, I will get, they want 1.5 yards. I will go get the elastic in a minute. But what they say is fold this on the fold line, and you know, turn under 1/4 inch and make your casing. I think there's a chance I might have cut my pattern out wrong, because what I thought was my cutting line might be a fold line. And if that's the case, if the sleeve has any say-so to it, the fold line on the sleeve bottom looks like it's approximately 5/8 of an inch in. I don't know, because at the top of the sleeve I cut and it says fold line there too. I thought I was cutting it out correctly, but I might not have been. And now I see a dot right there, so I might have cut my entire top edge 5/8 of an inch lower than the pattern. You know, things happen. Is it the end of the world? No, because it's a elastic top anyway. So this had several different sizes all staggered, and I saw a large and I saw a line, and my eyeballs probably just said, oh, that's obviously a cut line, quick and easy, and I cut it. If you do the same thing, you know what, we're not going to sweat it because it's an elastic top. So what I'm going to do is fold down my upper edge, you know, making sure my seam allowances are going towards the sleeve. I'm going to fold down my upper edge, you know, at a generous 5/8 of an inch. I tend to go a little bit more because I feed my elastic through with a bodkin, and I am looking for my bodkin. Here it is. Okay, so this is my bodkin that I feed through, and I need a fat 1/2 of an inch to be able to get this and the thickness of the little ring and everything through. So I will tend to err on the side of generosity for my casings. So if I turn the bottom edge under just so that my serging is underneath, and then turn it under, I'm going to give myself at this point 5/8 of an inch, okay? Because that way I should, like let's say that my pin here is my stitching, I should be able to feed my bodkin through that. All right, if I make it any smaller than that, it won't go through, and I dearly love using this thing, so There you go. Now it's not going to be totally flat because, you know, this is curved. So the outside edge is going to be larger than the edge down here. I just got my little piece of stitch witchery here. Turn on my light. And I'm just going to stick it underneath my seam allowance, fold it over, and press it in there. And that way, no matter what direction I'm feeding my elastic through, if I'm coming over here and I'm trying to shove it this way, this seam allowance is not going to get in my way. So that's cool. Okay, I'm still over here on Vincent. I want to show you what I'm doing to make it easier to make that turn. What I'm doing is I am just folding over the very edge where my serging is, okay? And then I have my stitch length set, you know, fairly long, and I'm doing that finger easing thing where I put my finger right behind the presser foot. And I just keep bunching up all this fabric until it's too big, then let it go, okay? And then I'm gonna, now that my seam allowances are fused the way I want them to go, I can fold it down, put my finger back there, and keep going. And let's see how he goes over this. Well, I'm just gonna go normal over the little seam allowance and then keep going up here. He's a noisy little boy, isn't he? Okay, so what that's gonna do is, first of all, give me an edge here, and yes, I do have purple thread. That's a long story, I'll tell you in a bit. But it puckers it. It eases all of that extra in. So then when I want to get my casing, see if I can do this where you can see, all I have to do is fold it, and it's already slightly gathered on this edge, so it's going to lay nice and flat. Let me finish this all the way around the top, and then I'll go back to the table and show you what I mean. Okay, so back here at my table, I have my edge, you know, stitched under. I don't know why there's a little loop there. Oh well, it's going to be not shown anyway. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it and pin it under at about a 5/8 inch seam allowance all the way around. And it's kind of an odd shape. In some parts, the little curve is convex to concave to over to under and everything. It should all even out. And by turning under my edge and finger easing it, or however I'm going to call it, ahead of time, if you can see here, it kind of is going to allow it to lay flat. Just ignore this ugly purple thread right there. I had a bobbin issue and I had to fix, and that's the spot where it happened. Okay, once I have this pinned all the way around, I'm going to come back and just edge stitch it right along the edge here to hold everything down, getting as close to the edge as I can. And in the very back, remember I pinned my little label back here to remind me what the back is. I'm going to leave an opening, you know, probably about a couple inches wide, so that I can use that as my space to feed my elastic through. Okay, so I've got my 1/4 inch elastic here, and the instructions, well, the pattern envelope calls for 1.5 yards. And so what I'm going to do is feed the entire 1.5 yards through and leave the ends hanging down. And once I have it fed through, then I'm going to try it on and cinch up the elastic to the point where it's comfortable for me, and then just trim it off right there, because I'm not too sure if I need the full 1.5 yards. I don't know. I mean, there was a guide, an elastic guide, but I found that those aren't always like really accurate for my own personal body. So this is going to work for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is just clip my little bodkin onto my 1/4 inch elastic. Squeeze it on, push it down there, and just start to work it through. Here's my back. Anyway, I've got both ends of my elastic sticking out here, you know, and then some, but that still looks really wide to me. So I think I'm gonna cinch this in even more. Go ahead and try it on. I'm pretty sure this is like really long because they intended for you to use it for the cuffs around the sleeves too. So I'm going to go ahead and try this on, see where it's going to fit my body well so it's not hanging down too low, and then we can tie the ends together. Okay, so this is where it's going to be comfortable for me. So I'm actually, I had originally a piece 1.5 yards long, and I am taking off, 2/3 of a yard. So I only used 2/3 of a yard-ish. Whatever the math is, I can't think of the math right now, but I used a whole lot less than the full 1.5 yards. Again, I did ignore their elastic guide, so I can't tell you exactly how close it is, but try it out on your own body. That's my suggestion. All right, so now with my little end here and my little end here, this elastic is lightweight enough. I am just going to overlap it. And with my little needle and thread that I still have over here, I'm just going to whip stitch both of the sides so it stays together nice and flat, and let that pop back into the casing. All right, so now that I have the elastic in there, I am just going to grab my label and put it over the very bottom edge, stitch straight across there, and that's going to finish closing up my casing back here and so on my little label so that I can tell which is the back and which is the front easily. Alrighty, got that stitched on there, and now all I need to do is the hem on the bottom. So I'm just going to make a standard little narrow hem where I turn it up about 5/8 of an inch, tuck that bottom edge in so I end up with about a 1/4 inch hem like this, and just put a straight stitch across the top. Okay, so it's done. Here's my little, this is Colette. She's my little troublemaker. You know, one of my mini black cats, so that's why I'm wearing this fabric. And you know, this pattern does pretty well with these crazy busy prints that otherwise, you know, might be hard to find something that's a garment type thing to make out of it, but I like it. I like it. It's good for the season. Now, it is out of a lightweight cotton, and it is getting pretty darn chilly out here, so it's going to be an inside kind of a blouse, but I will be layering over it soon, I can tell you. Not really much in the way of problems with this blouse. I would say if you are cutting that sleeve the full length, either put elastic in it, or if you want this length, you know, this is about 6 inches shorter than the longest length of the sleeve. I think it is plenty wide without adding that extra ruffle bit, but that's just me. I have it tucked in, but even tucked in, I can feel the bottom of it right here, and that's, you know, with it being tucked in. If it was just hanging loose without the waistband cinching it in, it would probably be, you know, even lower. But it's comfy. The sleeves were plenty wide, lots of ease, easy to put together. So I hope you liked it. I gotta put this cat down because she is like crawling all over me here, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Living my bucolic life, reality city strife. Horses, chicks, and dogs, they are my neighbors. I cook and sew and spin, and move the horses into the barn, then time to move them out again. Red barns, green pastures, beautiful white houses, the view I see each day when I arise. This life pleases me, as it is plain to see. I'm living my bucolic life.